The soft hum of the city buzzed outside as Maya Carter stepped through the towering glass doors of Falcon Airways' headquarters. The air smelled of expensive cologne and freshly polished wood, the kind of place where power moved in silence. She had been here before, years ago, as a hopeful pilot looking for a chance. Back then, they had dismissed her without a second thought. But today was different. Today, they needed her. Maya adjusted her tailored navy blue blazer, her pilot's license tucked neatly in her leather briefcase. 15 years in the sky, thousands of flight hours, FAA certifications, and a spotless record. She had earned her place. Falcon Airways had finally reached out, showing interest in signing her for a lucrative contract. She strode confidently toward the receptionist's desk. A blonde woman in a crisp white blouse glanced up, then did a double-take, her eyes sweeping over Maya with something that wasn't just surprise, it was disbelief. "Can I help you?" The woman's tone was clipped, almost annoyed. Maya set her briefcase down. "Yes, I have a meeting with Mr. Lancaster. He's expecting me." The receptionist's brows furrowed, her gaze flickering to the door, as if waiting for someone else to walk in. "And you are?" "Maya Carter," she said, enunciating each syllable clearly. The woman tapped on her keyboard, her lips pursing, then her expression hardened. "Pilots don't wait in here. You can stand outside." For a second, Maya thought she had misheard. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy and suffocating. I'm sorry, what?" she asked, her voice steady but sharp. The receptionist let out a sigh, as if Maya was wasting her time. "This lounge is for executives and VIP guests," she said, her tone slower this time, like Maya wouldn't understand. "Pilots usually wait outside or in the crew area." Maya let out a short, humorless laugh. "I'm not a crew member. I'm here for a contract negotiation." The receptionist raised a skeptical brow, glancing at Maya's deep brown skin, natural curls pulled into a sleek bun, and the confident stance that didn't waver. The woman didn't even try to hide it. The assumption, the judgment, the dismissal. Before Maya could say another word, the receptionist turned away, focusing back on her screen as if she no longer existed. And then, as if on cue, a tall man in an expensive charcoal suit strolled through the hallway, Daniel Lancaster, the CEO of Falcon Airways. Maya straightened, expecting at least an acknowledgement. After all, his company had been the one to invite her here. But Lancaster didn't even glance in her direction. He walked right past her, greeting a white male executive with a firm handshake and a booming laugh. Maya felt something tighten in her chest. She had faced racism before. She had been ignored, underestimated, and doubted more times than she could count. But standing here, in the middle of a company that had sought her out, being treated like she was invisible, it hit differently. The humiliation crept in, a slow burn that settled deep in her stomach. She could have argued. She could have demanded to be let in. But instead, she did something that terrified them the most. She went silent. Without a word, Maya grabbed her briefcase, turned on her heel, and walked toward the exit. As she pushed open the glass doors, the cold air hit her like a slap, but she welcomed it. Because what Falcon Airways didn't know, what they had no idea about, was that she wasn't just going to leave. She was going to shut them down. And this was just the beginning. The cold air outside Falcon Airways headquarters cut through Maya Carter's blazer, but she barely felt it. Her fingers tightened around the handle of her briefcase, her knuckles white from the pressure. She had been dismissed before, overlooked, ignored, undermined. But something about this moment, the casual way they stripped away her dignity as if she wasn't worth acknowledging, lit a fire in her that she hadn't felt in years. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking her trance. She pulled it out and saw her mother's name flash on the screen. She let out a slow breath before answering. "Hey, Mama," she said, forcing her voice to stay even. Her mother, Evelyn Carter, had worked more shifts than Maya could count just to keep food on the table. A single mother breaking her back as a waitress in the South, raising a daughter who refused to settle for anything less than the sky. "Maya, baby, how did it go?" Evelyn's voice was full of hope. Did they offer you the contract? Maya hesitated. Her mother had always been her biggest cheerleader. She had seen Maya fight her way through a world that didn't want her there. The long nights of studying aerodynamics and flight mechanics while working double shifts at the airport, the countless rejection letters from airlines that had no problem hiring less qualified men, but somehow found Maya not the right fit. She had been here before, but this time she wasn't just a hopeful pilot looking for a job. She was a proven expert in her field, and they still saw her as nothing. Maya forced a smile into her voice. It's still in progress, Mama. Just a few hiccups. Her mother sighed. She could always hear the truth in Maya's voice. Don't let them get to you, baby, Evelyn said gently. You've worked too hard for this. You deserve this. Maya swallowed the lump in her throat. I know. She ended the call and closed her eyes for a moment, letting the memories come rushing back. As a child, she had spent hours pressed against the chain-link fence of the local airfield, watching the planes take off, imagining herself in the cockpit. Her mother had done everything she could to support that dream, but money was always tight. When Maya finally got into flight school, she was one of the only black students in her class. The stares, the whispers, the subtle dismissals, they all followed her like a shadow. She remembered the first time she applied to a commercial airline. The hiring manager, a middle-aged white man, never looked up from his paperwork as he spoke to her. We're not looking for new hires right now, he had said, even though their website had been flooded with job listings. She had seen the way his expression changed when a young white male pilot walked in minutes later. The same man who had brushed her off had suddenly become warm and welcoming, shaking the other pilot's hand, offering him an interview on the spot. Maya had left that office furious, humiliated, and exhausted. She had spent the next 10 years proving every single one of them wrong. By the time she hit 10,000 flight hours, she had flown private jets for billionaires, commanded corporate flights across 5 continents, and even been offered a seat as a commercial airline captain. And now a company that had once pursued her for her skills was treating her like she didn't belong in the same room as them. Maya stood outside Falcon Airways, gripping her briefcase. She had 2 choices. She could walk away, let it roll off her back like she had so many times before. Or she could remind them exactly who they were dealing with. Maya inhaled sharply, then turned on her heel and walked toward the luxury black sedan parked at the curb. Her assistant, Darren, lowered the window. You good, boss? His sharp brown eyes studied her, sensing the tension in her stance. Maya pulled open the door and slid inside. Not yet, she said, voice cold, but I will be. Darren raised a brow, then smirked. That bad, huh? Maya let out a humorless chuckle, shaking her head. They told me to stand outside, she muttered, like I was some rookie pilot looking for scraps. Darren's expression darkened. After they asked you to come? Maya nodded. Darren let out a low whistle. Damn. She leaned back against the seat, her mind already calculating her next move. This wasn't just about one company's ignorance. It was about an entire industry that still refused to see pilots like her as equals. She had spent her whole career fighting to be recognized, to be seen for her talent, not just her race. But if they wanted to pretend she didn't exist, she'd make sure Falcon Airways didn't exist either. Maya Carter sat in the back seat of her sedan, gripping her phone so tightly her fingers ached. The words of that receptionist still echoed in her ears, dismissive, smug, like she was nothing more than a nuisance. Her breath was steady, but inside a storm was brewing. Oh, she tapped her phone screen and scrolled to Falcon Airways' corporate contact list. If the front desk wanted to treat her like she didn't matter, fine. She'd go over their heads. With a quick swipe, she found the direct line to Marcus Langford, Falcon's head of partnerships, the same executive who had personally reached out to her weeks ago, eager to bring her on board. The phone rang, once, twice. Then, a click. A woman's voice answered. Falcon Airways, this is Denise speaking. Maya recognized the voice immediately, the same receptionist who had told her to stand outside. For a second, Maya considered hanging up. But no, she wanted her to hear this. Denise, Maya said smoothly, I'd like to speak with Marcus Langford. A pause. Then, I'm sorry, Mr. Langford is in a meeting. Maya's jaw clenched. She had expected this. Then I'll hold. Another pause. Denise cleared her throat. I'm afraid that won't be possible. Can I take a message? Maya exhaled slowly, keeping her voice even. I was at your headquarters earlier, she said, for my scheduled meeting regarding the contract with Falcon Airways. I was denied entry and treated with blatant disrespect. I'd like to speak with Mr. Langford directly about this matter. Silence. Then a sharp, passive-aggressive laugh from Denise. Oh, she said, voice dripping with false sweetness. That was you? Maya's fingers tightened around her phone. Yes, she said, her tone cold. Well, Denise continued, from what I heard, you were quite disruptive. I believe security was about to be called. Maya stilled. Her grip on the phone loosened as the weight of those words sank in. Disruptive? Security? It was a lie. A blatant, calculated lie. Maya forced herself to breathe. I'm sorry, what exactly did you hear? Denise let out a sigh as if this was nothing more than a hassle. That a woman came in, demanding to see the CEO without an appointment, that she became agitated when asked to wait outside. A pause. I was told you raised your voice, made a scene. Maya's blood ran cold. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't made a scene. She had barely gotten 2 sentences out before being dismissed. But now, they were flipping the story. The air in the car felt suffocating. She had dealt with microaggressions, passive racism, and dismissals before, but this was deliberate. She straightened her posture. Denise, she said, her voice sharp, you and I both know that's not what happened. A silence stretched between them. Then Denise spoke, her tone smug. Well, that's what was reported. And just like that, Maya understood. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't just one ignorant receptionist. They were protecting someone, protecting something. Maya's voice was ice. Tell Marcus Langford that I'll be following up through official channels. She ended the call before Denise could respond. An hour later, Maya sat in her home office, staring at the email on her laptop screen. Subject: Falcon Airways Partnership Inquiry Update. She already knew what it said before she even clicked it. Her fingers hovered for a second, then tapped the trackpad. Dear Ms. Carter, thank you for your time and interest in Falcon Airways. After careful consideration, we have decided to move in a different direction for this partnership. We appreciate your dedication and wish you the best in your future endeavors. Best, Falcon Airways, Corporate Office. Maya read the words again and again, her vision tunneling. They had completely shut the door on her. No explanation, no apology. Just another generic rejection. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. She had seen it before. She had lived it before. A rejection that wasn't about qualifications or merit. It was about race. She took a slow breath, forcing herself to think. Something about this felt personal. Her instincts were screaming at her. This wasn't just a coincidence. She opened her laptop and started digging. It didn't take long. A few searches, a few deep dives into aviation industry forums and FAA reports, and there it was, plain as day. Falcon Airways had never hired a black pilot in its entire history. Not once, not in 4 decades of operation. Their roster was exclusively white, with a handful of token hires from other racial backgrounds. But never a black pilot. And they had done a damn good job keeping it quiet. The deeper she looked, the more she found. Lawsuits quietly settled out of court. Pilot applicants who mysteriously never heard back. Anonymous testimonies from former employees who spoke about an unspoken culture within Falcon's hiring practices. Maya leaned back in her chair, exhaling sharply. This wasn't just one racist receptionist. This was systemic. Her fingers curled into fists. They had dismissed her, lied about her, rejected her, and they thought that was the end of it. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. Maya sat in the dimly lit corner of a downtown cafe, her fingers wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Across from her sat David Monroe, a seasoned investigative journalist known for exposing corporate corruption. He was in his late 40s with graying stubble and sharp, knowing eyes that had seen too much. David leaned forward, sliding a thick manila folder across the table. "I've been working on this for months," he said, voice low. "Falcon Airways isn't just racist. They've covered their tracks so well that most people don't even know it's happening." Maya flipped open the folder, her breath hitching as she scanned the pages. FAA complaints filed by black pilots, ignored and buried. Internal emails between executives discussing maintaining company culture. A leaked memo from HR. An unspoken rule. Certain candidates do not align with Falcon's vision. Her stomach twisted. "This is," she whispered, flipping through more. David nodded grimly. "It's worse than you think." He pulled out another sealed document. It's an internal report from a Falcon Airways recruiter. He tried to push for diversity hires last year. Maya read the words. "I was told, word for word, we don't take risks with unproven backgrounds." They weren't talking about experience. They were talking about race. Her hands trembled. David exhaled. He quit, filed a complaint. Nothing came of it. Maya closed her eyes, inhaling sharply. For years she had felt this, seen it in the way doors mysteriously shut, in the polite rejections that masked something uglier. But now she had proof. That night, Maya sat at her desk, her laptop screen glowing in the dark. The words poured out of her, each sentence sharper than the last. For years, black pilots have been locked out of the industry, not because of skill, not because of experience, but because of an invisible wall built to keep us out. "I am a pilot. I have flown thousands of hours. I have been trained, tested, and certified. And yet, when I walked into Falcon Airways, I was told I didn't belong, before I even spoke. But this isn't just my story. This is bigger than me." She attached screenshots of the leaked documents, redacting only names for legal protection. She named names. She laid out decades of discrimination, the buried lawsuits, the fake diversity initiatives. Then with a deep breath, she hit publish. Within minutes, the post was gaining traction. Within hours, it was exploding. People flooded the comments, sharing their own horror stories. "This happened to my uncle. He had years of experience and was passed over for white pilots with half his qualifications. I applied to Falcon 3 times. Every time I got a generic rejection. My white coworker? Hired instantly. Maya, you're brave as hell. We're behind you." By morning, the post had gone viral. Celebrities, activists, and even lawmakers retweeted her story, demanding an investigation. Falcon Airways' social media pages were flooded with people calling them out. It was every corporation's worst nightmare. And Maya? She was just getting started. By noon, Falcon Airways finally responded. "We take these allegations seriously and are committed to diversity and inclusion. These accusations are completely unfounded." Maya stared at the screen, lips curling in disgust. She clicked refresh. The statement had already been ratioed, thousands of people calling out their lies. "Lol, you've never hired a black pilot. Who are you fooling?" "Unfounded, we literally have receipts. Maya Carter is exposing y'all, and all you got is this weak response? Embarrassing." Maya leaned back, a slow smirk forming. They thought this would go away. They thought she'd back down. They had no idea what was coming next. Maya sat at her kitchen table, staring at the thick envelope in front of her. Her hands felt numb as she flipped it open. The words jumped off the page like a gunshot. Notice of defamation. Lawsuit. Plaintiff. Falcon Airways damages sought, $50 million. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The airline wasn't just denying her accusations. They were trying to crush her. Her phone buzzed. It was her lawyer, Renee Holloway, her voice tight with urgency. "Maya, listen to me. This isn't just about clearing their name. This is about destroying yours." Maya swallowed hard. "They think they can scare me into silence. They don't just think it, they're betting on it." Renee sighed. "This lawsuit? It's a public execution. They want to make an example out of you so no one else ever dares to do this again. Maya clenched her fists. I won't back down. Renee hesitated. Then prepare yourself, because they're coming for everything. The next morning, Maya's email overflowed with bad news. We regret to inform you that your application is no longer under consideration. Due to recent controversy, we must withdraw our previous offer. We cannot move forward with your employment at this time. One after another, airlines that had once courted her were now blacklisting her. Maya felt her stomach twist. Her career, her entire life's work, was vanishing overnight. She turned on the TV. Falcon Airways CEO was giving an interview, his voice smooth and calculated. It's unfortunate that someone would spread false claims to gain attention. We've always been an inclusive company. The fact that we're being targeted is disheartening. We have no choice but to defend our reputation against this baseless attack. Maya's blood boiled. But the worst part? People were starting to believe them. News segments called her reckless and unverified. Online trolls flooded her pages with hate and threats. Even some of her allies started to distance themselves. She sat alone in her apartment, staring at the walls. She had fought against racism before, but she had never felt this alone. Just when Maya thought she had hit rock bottom, her phone buzzed. Unknown number? She hesitated, then answered. A deep, gravelly voice spoke. Maya Carter? She straightened. Who's asking? A pause. Then, I have information about Falcon Airways. Her pulse quickened. Who is this? The voice stayed low. Meet me at Lincoln Park, tomorrow, 9 p.m. No phones, no cameras. You want the truth? Come alone. Then, click. Maya sat frozen. This wasn't about just discrimination anymore. Something bigger was hiding beneath Falcon Airways, and she was about to find out what. Maya arrived at Lincoln Park just before 9 p.m. A cold breeze cut through the air as she scanned the empty benches. Her heart pounded. Was this a trap? Then a man in a dark hoodie emerged from the shadows. He stopped a few feet away. His voice was low but firm. I work with the FBI, and I've been investigating Falcon Airways for years. Maya's breath hitched. You're in way more danger than you think. He pulled out a folder, thick with documents, emails, and financial records. Racism is just the tip of the iceberg. This company is hiding tax fraud, illegal hiring practices, and corruption that runs deep. Maya's fingers trembled as she flipped through the papers. Millions of dollars in hidden accounts, fake contracts, discriminatory hiring emails. She looked up. Why are you telling me this? He took a deep breath. Because your case just blew the door wide open. Then he handed her a flash drive. Give this to the press and watch what happens next. The next morning, Maya sent the flash drive to every major news outlet. Within hours, headlines exploded across the country. FBI launches investigation into Falcon Airways. Whistleblower exposes airline's dark secrets, CEO accused of decades-long discrimination fraud. The story went viral. TV anchors, journalists, and analysts tore into Falcon Airways, exposing evidence of racial discrimination dating back decades. Emails where executives mocked black pilots and denied them jobs. Millions in unpaid taxes and offshore accounts. Maya watched live as the FBI raided Falcon Airways' headquarters. Agents stormed in, seizing files, computers, and hard drives. Reporters shoved microphones into the CEO's face as he walked out. Do you deny the allegations? Why did you lie about your hiring practices? Are you prepared for prison time? His face drained of color. He stammered a weak, no comment, before shoving past cameras. Over the next weeks, the scandal shattered Falcon Airways. Their stock crashed overnight. Sponsors and investors pulled out. Passengers canceled flights, boycotting the airline. More ex-employees came forward, exposing their own experiences. Black pilots who were rejected without reason. Flight attendants who faced racist abuse from executives. Mechanics who were paid less based on their race. The public demanded justice. Congress called for hearings. Activists rallied at airports chanting Maya's name. Lawsuits piled up against the airline. Falcon Airways, once a billion-dollar empire, was now rotting from the inside. Then the final blow came. The CEO was arrested. Live on national TV, agents led him out of his mansion in handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent, Maya exhaled deeply. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was justice. Months later, Maya sat in a courtroom. The judge read the final ruling of her defamation case. The court finds in favor of Maya Carter. The plaintiff's lawsuit was retaliatory and baseless. Maya won. Falcon Airways had tried to destroy her. Instead, she destroyed them. As she stepped out of court, reporters swarmed her. How does it feel to win? Maya smiled. This isn't just my win. It's for everyone who's ever been silenced. The crowd cheered. She had fought against a system designed to break her. And she had won. Maya Carter stood across the street, staring at the abandoned Falcon Airways headquarters. The glass doors were shattered, the once golden logo faded and peeling. A for lease sign hung crookedly on the front. She let out a breath. This was the same building where they had humiliated her, where they had laughed in her face. Now it was nothing but a graveyard of corruption. She walked up to the entrance. The reception desk was empty. The same spot where a woman once sneered at her and said, "Pilots don't wait in here." Maya gritted her teeth. This was where they tried to break her. Now she stood here as the woman who took them down. A slow, satisfied smile spread across her face. They were gone, and she was still standing. Weeks later, Maya received a special invitation. She arrived at a brand new airport terminal, buzzing with excitement. A massive banner hung from the ceiling. Grand opening of Skywings Aviation, the first black-owned airline. Maya's breath hitched. She looked around at the black pilots in crisp uniforms, at the diverse crew members smiling with pride. A woman in a navy suit walked up to her. "Maya Carter, I'm Tasha Simmons, CEO of Skywings. We built this because of you." Maya's chest tightened. Tasha smiled. "You made history, Maya. Now it's our turn." The crowd erupted into applause. Maya felt tears sting her eyes. This was more than justice. This was change. That night, Maya stood on her apartment balcony, looking up at the sky. She had won this battle. But the war? It wasn't over. Her phone buzzed. A new email. Subject: urgent whistleblower case, need your help. She exhaled, gripping the railing. Another company, another battle, another fight for justice. She wasn't done. As the wind carried the sound of an airplane overhead, Maya whispered, "Let's take this higher."